Good afternoon from Kigali, Rwanda. I've got my, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a grapefruit essential oil. I really love essential oils. It's one of my favorite things in life. Every country that I've traveled to, I always get a ton of essential oils. This is not a local one. I have a few that are actually made in Rwanda, but this one is one of my favorite brands that I actually order from iHerb.com. It's Aura Acacia. This is the grapefruit one. And so I use essential oils at different times of the day to help me focus, particularly on writing projects or, just to be able to build an atmosphere or an environment where I'm working at. So today we're talking about how I became a full time freelance writer. Um, the journey for me for becoming a full time freelance writer has not been it's not been linear. It's not like I did a program. I didn't go to school to become a freelance writer. Um, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of errors. Tried a lot of stuff and a lot of errors. Um, but I will share some of my journey here about what I did to become a full time freelance writer, and also give you some tips that will hopefully help you get you on your way if you're interested in becoming a full time freelance writer. And also add some additional tips in there for those of you who are interested in becoming a full time freelance writer who's able to travel the world at the same time. So, um, I've told my story here on my channel a few times before, but I could always share it again. I've had my business full time since 2015. So that's what about 8 years, 8 or 9 years. Um, but I was actually writing well before well before 2015. It's not like I just woke up one day and just decided I'm going to be a freelance writer and I just jumped into it. I actually started writing um, as a blogger back in 2004. This is like in the fun days of blogging when people were online and they were writing about stuff that they were really passionate about. And they were like communities of people who were building, and there were like local conferences of people um, who were bloggers. And some of them were like bloggers in specific areas like food or education or anything that they were doing that was related to their work. So I started off blogging about my life as an educator and just some of the things that I loved and what I didn't like so much about the work that I was doing. I was working in the area of adult education at the time, and I was just really passionate about helping adults learn how to read, be able to get jobs, so that they can help their families to progress. And so that was what I wrote about. So I started that out in 2014 when I was actually doing a graduate degree program related to adult education. What happened as a result of writing that blog was I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. What happened was I got the attention of some local people um, who were involved in adult education as well. And they thought that my work was interesting. And from my work as a blogger, they would hire me to be a consultant on various types of projects. So, I would teach adult education classes. I taught adult learners how to start blogs of their own that were related to their community, problems or things that they wanted to talk about in their community. Um, Also, I got like contracts to do grants, to write grants for certain organizations. It was a lot of fun. And it was nice to be able to see how my skill as a writer was getting a lot of attention. Because in real life, I'm sure that you can tell I'm not the most outgoing person. As a matter of fact, doing these videos is just something that I do for practice to be able to talk about me and my story, um, because I just need to be able to practice it. I'm a great writer, but going out to speak about what it is that I want and how to be able to, you know, pull people into a mission using my verbal skills is a little more difficult for me. I'm less practiced in that. Writing, I can do that all day. So I started in 2004 and I got the consulting jobs. Fast forward a few years, around, let's say, 2008 or 9 ish, I decided that I wanted to move into the health sphere. That was more so a um, that was more so a move because of what I was experiencing in my own life. I was having issues with fibroids, and I wanted to be able to talk about what I was learning about fibroids and what I was doing to be able to change my own personal health. And so I got into things like going to uh, going to farmers markets, and I was going to visit naturopaths, and I was learning how to cook from scratch, and I was just learning a lot. And so I used my health blog at that time as a space to be able to gather. Um, to be able to gather like-minded women who were interested in fibroids and learning how to live a more natural lifestyle. Um, I did that for a while. I probably did that for maybe 3 or 4 years. I had, like, developed I learned how to develop an email list and all sorts of other things. And what I found while I was doing this, um, was that I really liked it a lot, and I wanted to actually move out of my career in education because I was just becoming very disillusioned with what I was seeing. And it was just time for me to move on to do other things because I had other interests that I wanted to be able to tap into. And what I learned during my health blogging phase was that when you're dissatisfied with the work that you're doing, that really takes a toll on your personal health. So when you have and personal dreams and interests that you want to be able to pursue, it's important that you give yourself the time and the space to pursue them, because when you don't, um, it takes a great toll on your health. And for me, it was taking a toll on my mental health. I had gained just a ton of weight. I was about 100, but you can probably see in some of my old videos. Um, you can see in my face I'm a lot thinner, at least in my face, than at least from what you can tell on the videos. You can see in my face I'm a lot thinner than what I was a few years ago. And so um, I was about 100 plus pounds overweight, and um, I've lost about 100 pounds since then. Um, and so I was trying to figure out what I could do to be able to move myself, move my career, because I wanted to be paid for the writing that I was doing. And I wanted time and space to be able to commit myself to other projects. I just wanted to be more creative. I didn't want to have to be stuck going to a job where I was underappreciated. I was really tired of having to get up and actually be at a certain place at a certain time every day. I just didn't want to do that. Like I don't know. Some people can do it. It's just I can't do it. I don't want to be in a meeting with anybody. Um, I don't like meetings. And working in education, I found that a lot of people they would just call meetings just for the sake of calling meetings. Every day was a meeting you had to be in. I couldn't deal with it. I just wanted to sit down and think and write and create things. Um, and so what happened was I wound up, gosh, that there was so much that happened during this time. I wound up getting a job still in the education space, but it was like in an after school creative program. And because during the time when I was doing my health blogging, I was doing a lot of food stuff, learning about food. And so I got a part time consultant job teaching children how to how to cook. And so it was an after school program in New York City. I wound up moving to New York City, um, and it was a lot of fun. And during this time, I would write daily lesson plans for the children that I was teaching. I was teaching for, excuse me, I was teaching for, let's see, they were third graders and sixth graders in Brooklyn. And it was just a lot of fun. And what I did was I would bring in my own personal interest in teaching about foods from around the world because, again, I'm a traveler. I love cultures. Um, and so I wanted them to be able to learn about cultures around the world. And also at the same time, what I didn't expect while I was doing this work was that a lot of these students came from multicultural backgrounds anyway. And that part of them was not encouraged to be spoken of while they were in school. So it was really fun to be able to say, okay, today we're going to do a Jamaican jerk vegetable dish. And the Jamaican students would get excited, or students from other parts of the Caribbean and say, oh, I'm from Trinidad, I'm from Jamaica. Um, I think what else did we do? We did like an Ethiopian dish. We did Ethiopian collard greens. I think it's called gomen one day. And it was exciting because had never been introduced to African food before. So that was exciting. I did like a couple of Turkish dishes, and there were students from Turkey. And then there were a few other Middle Eastern dishes. And there was a young girl from Yemen. Um, and there was a person from Russia, and she would talk about, oh, we would have dishes, and the dish was pretty similar to what she would remember her grandmother making for her when she was a child. So that was a lot of fun. I was able to write a lot of just daily lesson plans while I was doing that. So I did that for a year, and then I moved to Florida, and then I said I needed to be able to make my freelance writing full time, but I didn't really know how to be able to do that. So what I started to do was I started to find like small health organizations that needed assistance with either like their grant writing. There were small like nutrition supplement organizations or companies that needed help with their marketing for their website. There were things that I found online for people that wanted to start a company that served senior citizens, and they wanted to build content, a website for content for senior citizens on how to help them, how to keep them healthy. And I did that when I moved to Florida, and for my first year, I was hustling really, really hard. But one of the things that was a problem for me was that I didn't really have an idea of what it looked like to be able to have a full time business. Um, what do you need to do? How do you structure having a full time business when you've really never done this before? I had no idea, like, how much money do I need to make? And so I was just sort of going off of what I was making before. And I was like, well, if I write blog posts, um, my goal was to make like $100 a day. And so if I get blog posts and I get paid $25 per blog post, and these were not like, complicated, this was just, B2B, business to business, health blog posts on, three things that you can do as a senior citizen to keep you healthy, like not hard stuff. And so I was getting paid $25 each, which was like wow, at the time. That was really exciting because I figured if I can do 4 of those a day, I can make a whole $100. And if I do that Monday through Friday, that would be $500. I can't even believe I thought that this was a good thing. So if I can make um, $500 a week, and I did that for 4 weeks in the month, that would make me about roughly $2,000 a month, right? Um, so yeah, I thought that if I can do that, if I can make that work, I can make this full time freelance business work for me. What happened was it didn't work for me. I quickly burned out trying to write for even the most basic blog posts at $25 a piece 4 times a day was just it was too much work for my brain, and you burn out because it's just not enough money. And plus, there are other um, what I really love about a freelance business is that the overhead is really it's not a lot, um, but you're not making a lot either when you're only making $25 each. Um, and what I learned when I was making $25 each is when you have clients who are paying you that little, they also give you the biggest headache. So it's not just the writing that was burning me out, it was also the fact that um, it was just also the fact that they were just big sticklers for like grammar, like super small stuff. And I don't want to make it seem like I was just handing anything in. Um, but when you're constantly being pushed to be able to finish stuff on a deadline, and they're only paying you a few dollars to be able to get it done, it just becomes a pain. So um, what I needed to learn was a shift in my mindset. But it would be some time before I could actually get to the mindset. I was still trying to learn some just foundational skills that I needed to learn. How do you actually find clients who are going to pay you a decent amount of money so that you can live? Because a freelance writing business, right? Your freelance writing business, it could look like anything. For some of you, you may just need $1,000 to $2,000 extra per month. Some of you may want to make five, seven, $10,000 a month. You can do all of that, and any of that. Your freelance business really belongs to you. It's very flexible, which is why I love being a freelancer so much. So, what I wound up doing was I got a full time job through a temp agency. They hired me as a consultant, and I did an editing job with the city of Orlando, editing um, standardized uh, tests for K through 12. Wound up doing that for a year. During that year, I was making probably about $30 an hour, which is really great money for me at the time. And so I wound up spending money on a coach, which is very well spent. Money very well spent because the foundation of what it is that I learned for how to keep a freelance business going is what are still a lot of the things that I do today. So I did that for a year. And then once that consulting gig was over, I moved into um, I gave my freelance writing business a go full time again. Um, now, this is the thing with mindset. If you don't value, if you don't, if you don't know your self worth, if you don't understand that you put a value on your skills, on your experience, then even though you have the foundational skills on how to run your freelance business, you're still not going to make a lot of money. And so I learned the skills. My coach did an awesome job, learned all sorts of awesome things. Um, I learned I was making more money, certainly more than the $25. I had moved into like the $100 to $200 blog posts, um, and other projects. But it was still just not a lot of money. In addition to that, there were just parts of my life that were just more complicated than what it needed to be. And really, I just needed to get out of it. And so one of the things that I had always wanted to do was travel the world while I was running my freelance writing business. And so what I did um, in the year 2015, in July of 2015, I packed up my life and I moved to Thailand. Um, I went to Dubai first, hung out in Dubai for about a week, and then I went to Thailand. And while I was in Thailand, I was able to do all this great work on myself. I found because the life in Thailand was so much cheaper than what I was living in the United States, I had a lot of, I wasn't making a lot of money still. I was probably making, if I made $1,200, $1,500 a month, that was a great month. But my bills were very, very low. Like my first place in Thailand, I only paid, I think, $200 for it, $200 a month for it for an apartment. So, and food was like nothing in Thailand. So that meant that I had extra money to be able to spend on myself, to be able to work with like coaches, and I would work with the healers and all sorts of other people to be able to help me with my health, physical health, mental health, and all sorts of other things. What I learned in that process was I didn't know how to be able to value myself. And so I found that the more healing work that I did on myself, the more I was able to make in my business. There is a correlation between how you feel about yourself, your self value, your self worth, and what it is that you ask for in the world, and how you demand that other people treat you. This is very important because you can learn all the skills on how to be a great full-time freelance writer all you want. But if you don't know that your skills are valuable, then you'll just take the first thing that's offered to you. Um, so went through all of that. That was a good 20 minutes of my personal story. I'm going to get better at being more concise at telling stories as I practice my YouTube skills. So now this part is for you. What do you need to actually do to be able to get your full-time freelance writing business off the ground? And at this point, I want to remind you, if you like the video, you can like it. You can share this video with people who want to be freelance writers, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want more information like this. My first tip, if you want to be able to start a full-time freelance business, is to start part-time. Whatever you're doing as a full-time job, hold on to it. Don't quit your job just yet. Sometimes I have people who connect with me and they're like, Kalana, how long is it going to take for me to be a freelance writer? And that can really depend. You can, like, if for those who are serious, you can make your first $500 to $1,000 in about 30 to 60 days. If you're serious and you actually go through the marketing process. For other people, it might take a little bit longer because it might take them longer to figure out what their particular niche is. But for those who have their stuff together, maybe you have some sort of a background in writing already. It should only take you 30 days to be able to get your first client that's paying you $500 to $1,000. And then it's just figuring out how to rev up your marketing system so that you'll get more clients. Um, you want to get more clients in your bag that will pay you great rates. So start part time, keep your full time job. You can do it in the mornings. I used to wake up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to work on client work. And then sometimes I would have others that I would work on in the evenings. You need to decide how much money you need to make. Ideally, you want to be able to make as much as or even more than what you're making on your full time job. So, pull together a list of all of your um, put together a list of all your bills, your necessary bills, um, what are the things you need versus the things that you want. How do you want to live? Do you want to be able to cut down? Do you need to move to someplace else? Or do you want to, move overseas like I did? Um, or move to a different town, or you get yourself another living situation where it's not going to be as expensive. And then decide what's the lowest, like what's the absolute lowest that you can make every month, what's comfortable for you. It's not just bare bones budget, comfortable budget, and ideal budget. And you can decide in there what it is that you want to, within that range of three income pots. You can decide how much you actually want to be able to earn in your business, because I can't tell you. That's totally a personal thing. Then you want to pick a niche that pays well. What I did in the very beginning, I just did what was interesting to me. And so I started off working in the health space, which can be a very lucrative space depending on where within health you're writing for. And so I started off working in like a health education space, um, like mental health, health for senior citizens, even in like the nutritional supplement space. They really weren't paying that much. Not that I'm not saying that you can't find people who are willing to pay you very well, um, but there are just certain niches that you need to be able to locate that are going to be great for you. I know somebody who wound up creating a freelance writing niche, writing for watch companies. She gets paid really, really well because there's not a lot of people who focus on writing about watches. I would have never told anybody to ever choose writing about watches as a niche, but it works for her. So you need to spend some time trying to figure out. You want to find a good match between your personal interests versus what it is that these companies are willing to pay you, and that can take some time. And then once you understand that, now you need a marketing strategy. How are you going to constantly get in front of companies that you know are willing to pay you well? You need a marketing strategy. So I use, for the most part, an outbound marketing strategy, and I like to be able to use LinkedIn. The reason I like LinkedIn is because I work with a lot of corporations, particularly within the tech space. And in the tech space, everybody and their mama is on LinkedIn. Um, Particularly the content marketing um, directors and all sorts of other people within content marketing, the creative people who are creating the content that they need to write in order to figure out, and who are creating the content to be able to attract the type of clientele that they want to attract. Um, and so I tend to write for tech companies, usually software companies, um, medical technology companies. So these are companies who are creating um, medical machines that are quite expensive, and they are selling it to other businesses, other hospitals, um, all sorts of places that are. I'm hoping that you all can't hear the people outside. But yeah, so that's what you need to do. You need a marketing strategy. I personally love to use LinkedIn, but other people use other things like um, they like to get on email. You can certainly email people. Personally, I find trying to hunt and peck for emails on the internet is just way too much work. LinkedIn, all of that stuff is already in one spot, and it's very easy to feel like you can actually directly connect with the people who are making the freelance hiring decisions. That's why I love LinkedIn. Um, then, for some of you who may be interested in working with smaller businesses, let's say you want to work with independent creatives, I would suggest doing something where you're going to build a brand. You might be interested in doing something like a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel. You might want to do TikTok, where you're educating people about the writing work that you can do. Maybe they want to do blog posts. Maybe they need someone to edit the writing that they create. Maybe they want someone to write and edit books for them. You're going to need to build a brand in order to make that happen. Um, and so you'll have to figure out a way to be able to build a brand on any of those social media sites, so that people can get to know you, feel comfortable with you. Perhaps you want to do something like build an email list. At some point, you may want to be able to offer online courses, and also invite people to be able to work with you one on one. You need a brand in order to do that, right? And then you need to have a system to be able to keep up with your clients and potential clients. So, what I do personally with my folks that I connect with on LinkedIn, if they say, usually when I send people a LinkedIn connection, and I ask them whether or not they work with freelancers, I will often send them um, I send them a link to my portfolio. And if they're interested in it, they may say, this is really great. We don't have the budget right now, but check back with me in 3 months. You're going to get a bunch of those, and you're going to need a way to be able to continue to communicate with these people so that you don't forget. Don't think that they'll don't think for a minute that companies or people in the companies don't get busy. And so if they need a hiring, if they need to make a hiring decision immediately, they may or may not remember you. But they often do appreciate it when I do pop back up into their email or their LinkedIn profile and say, hey, I'm just checking back in, poking my nose in the door to see, just to let you know I'm still available. If you have any writing needs, I'm here. And I've gotten a lot of work that way. And it does require a certain level of organization in order to be able to do that. Um, and I also mentioned the portfolio. The portfolio is super important, particularly as you work with bigger and bigger companies. They want to be able to see proof that you that you know what you're doing. You got to know what you're doing. And so building a portfolio of work of things that you've done in the past is going to be really important. Now, for those of you who are just starting out, um, plenty of ways to be able to start to create a portfolio of work, paid or unpaid. You can start your own blog with some high quality content. You can be on LinkedIn. You can start your own LinkedIn profile there, and there's ways for you to be able to publish your own articles and share it with. You can share it with your community there. Um, Plenty of blogs and all sorts of online sites who are looking for written content, and they need great writers. So you can go to those sorts of sites that are related to the niches that you want to write for, and just say, hey, I'm available. You might want to pitch a topic and say, hey, I can write a uh, 800 word blog post on this topic. And I'm an expert on this because of these experiences. Can I write this for you? In a lot of cases, depending on how big or small the website is, they'll either say yes or no. But what it is that you want is you just want at least 3 pieces of content that say, I know how to write. And then you go out into the world and you um, present it to companies and you tell them, hey, I'm a writer. And sometimes once you get someone who actually says yes, then you'll be able to replace one of those older blog posts or other pieces of content that you've written, and you replace it with the ones that you're getting paid for. And you do this, and slowly over time, you'll have a really great, really strong portfolio to be able to show to clients, and you'll be able to get better and better clients as your portfolio improves. So we're at 35 minutes now. This was a lot of information. For some of you, this is plenty enough for you to be able to get started, or if you've already got a freelance career going, I hope that this was helpful and you've gotten a few tidbits to maybe to help you improve your freelance writing business. Um, if you want, I'm always available. I'm doing one-on-one consulting sessions with people. I'm always happy to be able to help people with their freelance writing business. You can look in the description box. You can go to halanablack.com and click on freelance writing coach. Freelance writing coach. And you can book directly a session with me. Um, if it's just something that's like a quick question that you want me to answer, I can certainly make a video about it in the future. Just put your question down in the question box below. Um, and until next time, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.